Hogstye.
What's going on, everybody? This is Jamual, of course, of the Hogstye. We're a little short-staffed today for a few reasons, but I got Steve with me and I guess a reoccurring guest now in Robert Henson. But before I get to how everybody's doing here today, we do have a quick little announcement, and Steve is going to take that away from us.
Okay. Sean Conti has decided to move on from the show. He's not leaving the Hogstye, though. He wants to focus on some video and writing contents. It's not beyond the realm of possible. He may be on, a time or two here and there, but for the most part, Sean will no longer be with the show. So you may see some changes as we kind of experiment about what to do going forward. But look for Sean and some cool video content on YouTube and on the site from here on out.
All right, we broke the news. We got that out the way. Sean is still a good friend of ours, of course, so he ain't going nowhere. But to the fellas that's here, Steve, how are you doing? Rob, how are you doing? How are both of you all doing today?
I'm doing fine, man. Good day to talk about football.
I'm good, man. Just fight. I'm in the last stages of the flu, so if I cough a little bit, bear with me. I'll try to mute it out.
Okay, wait a minute. Yeah.
I'm about to say, I had some questions.
Now, is this the flu or is this the big, epidemic coronavirus that you've caught? Which one? What is it? Because if it's a latter, I'm not sure I want to keep talking to you even over a microphone.
Well, considering the fact that I was at home with my kids when I got it from them. My wife took my daughter to the gym and the little kids club. She came home with it, and then the whole family got it. So this whole week we've been just fighting the flu. We went and went to the doctor. It's the flu, the A strain, which is the more aggressive one apparently. So everybody got medicated up, and we on the back end of it now. So.
Okay, Steve, do you take flu shots?
Well, the U.S. military made me take 24 of them in a row, and so ever since that ended, and the only time I ever get sick is when I take the flu shot. So I've boycotted the flu shot ever since I retired from the military, and I have refused to take them ever since.
So this is the first year that we didn't.
And you got it.
We got ravaged.
That's crazy, because I feel the way that you feel, Steve. Like, I feel like if I take it, something's gonna happen, and every time I go to Kaiser, they say, you want your flu shot? You want your flu shot? You need to take your flu shot. And I tell them no. Like, I haven't gotten, fingers crossed, knock on wood, you know what I'm saying? I haven't gotten sick with the flu, at least. I don't think ever, but I'm a little nervous about that one. I'm
convinced somebody in the flu shot company is related to like the Secretary of Defense or something with as ornery as the military is about it.
Well, look, Rob, I feel for you, man. You and your folks. I don't want to go through that, so I wish you a speedy recovery on that end. But let's go ahead and get to what we brought you on here to do, what you're best at, and this is the Redskins talk. I guess we'll go ahead and start with the biggest news out of the week. And Steve, you got your poll, but we know that Trent Williams is, Trent Williams made some headlines. We understand that his agent was allowed to seek trades, or seek his trade market, see what his value is looking like out there in the market for the NFL team. So, Steve, if you want to go ahead and elaborate on that and get to your poll, we go ahead and do that.
All right, so obviously everybody knows, Rob knows more than anybody about it, that Trent's been unhappy for a while. He had the cancer scare last year. He was unhappy with the organization. It looks as though Ron Rivera has tried to see if he and Trent could reach some common ground, and clearly they didn't, because the news broke this week that the Redskins have allowed Trent to seek a trade. And once that happens, I think Trent's definitely gone. We do have a poll. But first, Rob, do you have anything to say about Trent's finally being allowed to leave the Redskins?
Well, I do know that everybody makes a big deal about, well, not make a big deal, but everybody talked about the contract extension that he wanted. He knew that wasn't going to go through, and that was a weapon he used to help him seek a trade. So I think a lot of people judged him for the contract talk, but he didn't even want it. He only wanted a new contract. So that was just a ploy, so to say, to get out his hound. So I don't have any new news on that. He's he's kept everything close to the vest on that. But that's one thing that I do know for sure is that there was no real want to for a new contract.
I don't know why the Redskins wouldn't extend him a couple years. It's not like he's at the end of the rope, you know.
He asked for as much money as he could. He's trying to break the bank, thinking and knowing that no team's gonna they're not gonna do that.
Yeah, it was a way to get
Especially
out.
with a new regime, exactly. So
I don't know why you wouldn't guarantee 2020 and throw him, I don't know, 14 million in 2021 and say, hey, is that enough? But it is what it is at this point, I guess.
you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I truly believe that Bruce knew that he was done, and this was like his middle finger on the way out. Like, he knew that if he did what he did to Trent, how hard it would be to recoup that money and how important that was to him. So he burned him as bad as he could before he left, knowing that it would be a fractured situation for whoever was next in line.
Huh. I mean, part of me wonders why the team and Trent can't reach some common ground since it's a whole new organization. And they need a left tackle desperately, and we're going to get to that. It's not like this man is extra, on the roster.
And that's what I want to ask you right quick, Rob. So one of the things that I was thinking about, and somebody actually planted this seed in my head, and it made sense. What's to say? He seeks his value. He seeks his potential trade partners. But they're not willing to renegotiate or simply give him the money that he feels like that's fair to him. What are the options in that regard? What do you think that is the best route for Trent to take? And can he come back and play on the year? Because if he's not looking at that money that he wants, what's to say that he doesn't walk next year as a free agent and actually find some value for him then?
Well, the first thing to your first question. Before any trade is agreed upon, I mean, it's kind of like the NBA from a sense, or it is exactly like the NBA, where, kind of like the sign and trade situation where, like we did with Alex Smith when we traded for him. Like, there was already an extension in place at the moment the trade was, finalized. So no player, no agent's going to walk into a new situation where a team says, you got to prove it. Like, prove what? He's a how many ever time Pro Bowler? Like, there's nothing to prove. So his next team is already going to have an extension on the table of what they think his value is. And it's going to be already agreed upon before the trade even takes place and pending the physical. To your second point or your second question, I honestly believe if he don't like what he see out there, I think he's more than willing to walk away from the game right now and maybe pick it up at a later date. I don't think he's pressed. Even this past year when he wasn't getting paid, he wasn't really pressed. I never got that sense that he was just pressed and like, oh, I need the money or I need the situation or I want to, it's a luxury at this point. Trent's been fortunate enough to make a lot of money and he's been very smart with it. A lot of great investments and savings. So I think if he don't get the situation that he wants, then I think Trent is more than capable of just walking away and saying it's been great. Or, let me sit out for a year, see what the market's like. I mean, he's good friends with Donald Penn. So Donald Penn kind of ran into that situation where he was looking for work and, he sat out and we came calling. So that situation's a possibility as well.
I still just don't understand why the Redskins wouldn't say, look, here's a 2-year extension. Try it. If it's not enough money, it's not enough money. Fine, we'll trade you. But to just not even make an effort. And I realize the fans are mad at Trent. A lot of you, we hear from you guys all the time, screw Trent and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But number one, this is a business. Number two, they need him and desperately need him. And number three, this cancer thing was serious. I can understand why it messed with his head. But I just don't understand why the Redskins wouldn't say, here you go. You may not like it, fine, but let's at least try. Here's a 2-year extension. Let's, tell if this is good enough or not.
I think there's a part of him that feels like he's earned the right, to ask for what he asked for money wise. Again, it was a ploy, but money wise, I don't think it's about the money. Let me put it that way. I think it's more, I've earned the right. Like I've went out, bust my ass. I've done everything you've asked of me. I played when I shouldn't have. I did this. I took your word for it on this, and it turned out to be something worse. Like, look at all this stuff that I've been through, and I'm a fixture. I'm a captain. I'm a staple on this team, and fans hate him now. Obviously, they hate anybody. So, but I think it's more of a respect thing that Trent is really looking for. From what I know, the conversations with Rivera were only two, but they were very productive. But Trent still felt like there's something missing, apparently. So,
And I think, by the way, I mean, the fan hate, I think Twitter is basically the downfall of society, as we know it. And I don't think, and I'm kidding, but I don't think that the Twitter reaction is necessarily a reaction from the Redskins fans as a whole. And I don't think the vitriol is quite as much against Trent as it seems like on Twitter.
Yeah, Twitter is a bubble. Like you'll see everything microwaved in a sense. The reactions will be quick. A lot of people will spew their emotions on there. Like those initial tweets will be emotional in a sense, and you really get something that's far fetched pretty often. But I think also so from my perspective, I don't agree with the F Trent from the fan base. I don't agree with that F Trent Williams stuff. I don't think that saying the not considering what he did for you in a 10-year period over this one incident is something that you should define Trent Williams' tenure. I think what people need to understand is what Steve said. And then consider the front office and what Rob said as well, like everything that he's been through. You need to consider that, but at the same time, also understand that it's a business. So if you do want Trent Williams gone, you understand that it is before the benefit of the team, but it's not. You shouldn't take this personal and view Trent Williams as a particular individual who hurt you personally. Like that's not what this is. People take it that way, and people took that the same way. They took it the same way with Quentin Dunbar. They took it the same way with Bashar Breeland. The list goes on, and it's unfortunate that Trent Williams is going to be Kirk Cousins. The list goes on. They get sucked into these battles with players and take it personal, but they don't necessarily view the situation as it should be, and this is all business related.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. A lot of people don't. Like, they'll hold the player more accountable than they do the franchise, and that's so backwards to me. Like, when a franchise shows you that it's not on your side or that it's just business to them, and then the player, assimilates and does the same thing, and realizes it's just business, then they get most of the backlash. I think it's just a little bit easier to go at players than it is to search out your local team's front office, and email them and stuff like that, So I think it's a little easier. But Trent's going in the Ring of Fame, or Ring of Honor. Well, so he's going to the Hall of Fame, most likely. So these are the same people who are going to be cheering for him that day that happens. So, everything's short-sighted. Everything's a knee-jerk reaction on social media anyway.
Rob, I mean, when you played, it was not before social media, but I don't think it was as prevalent back then. But how aware are the players in the locker room about fan reaction to things like this? Is this something they pay attention to, or do you not care, or what?
Well, you do care. You have a select few players who are okay without it. But when I was the first athlete to get, I would quote say, baptized in social media and going back and forth with fans. So you do pay attention to a sense. After I said what I said that night on Twitter,
right?
Way back when I was playing, I probably sifted through 200, 300, 400 comments, not even really paying attention to them all, and focused on one that was just because I don't know, you just pretty much, you read some of them, you don't. Some of them, some people DM you and you talk back and forth with them. So I would say players pay most attention to the direct messages. The mentions, not so much, depending on what the post is. So um, we're in a day and age where athletes control their own message, and they they put out whatever they want. And like guys like I know for a fact, like Haskins, he puts out a lot of stuff, and it's really for him. It's not to prove anything. It's really like a montage of the work he puts in.
Yep,
He
100%.
puts it on there for him, so it's crazy.
Yeah, and one thing, because he said something right. We get to the poll question right after this, but I kind of 100%, well, kind of 100% agree with Rob in the sense that it's crazy how people go at athletes next. 100%, and it doesn't really make sense to me. But I also think that this is one of the things that social media provides. Like when you're posting things as an individual, like I didn't care in the sense that Dwayne Haskins is posting workouts, but people find a way to get upset. This thing is not for him showing off. It's for him, like, showing the results of the work that he puts in. It's for himself, as Rob said. And that's just the latest example. Like, people get upset about things that has nothing to do with them. It's not about them. It's about the person himself. It's his social media page. It's for him to show off. Like, people post workout videos all the time.
Well, they jumped all over Terrell Pryor for that.
Yeah, like you're an athlete or you're a regular person. You're posting workouts. And then they see Terrell Pryor and they see him posting his workout videos, and they say, "Oh, he's about to be an elite receiver." And then you step on the football field and you see he's the furthest thing from it. But people have these opinions of these players, and to Rob's point, like, people are disrespectful to these athletes because one, they're trying to get their attention, or two, they know that they have that confidence behind social media where it's like you have that barrier where you can be as quote unquote raw as you possibly can, and there's no repercussions behind it, and that's just completely unfair. So I can understand why athletes can read through a comment and be upset and pissed off. They have every right to be not in a sense like that, but at the same time, when people do things or when they post things, it's not to show off. It's more so their personal, like, it's their personal progress. 9 times out of 10, at least that's what it's for me too.
All right, we have a poll. Since Trent's probably leaving, we wanted to see what everybody thought about how the Redskins can possibly replace him. So, the poll question this week is: the Redskins have allowed Trent Williams to seek a trade, which means he will probably be gone this season. How should the Redskins replace him? Now, of course, we're limited to 4 choices on Twitter, thanks to hashtag Twitter limitations. So the choices were: number 1, draft a left tackle at number 2. Number 2, trade down and get a left tackle somewhere lower and trade 1. Number 3, use free agency or maybe Jerron Christian. And then number 4, use whatever pick we get back on Trent to draft a new left tackle. Because presumably, and I want to go over this later, but presumably the Redskins will at least get a number 2, at least get a second rounder at least at a minimum out of Trent. So those are the 4 choices. Jamal, what do you think?
So for me, I feel like so I'll do the fan and then I'll do my personal. The fan, I think they chose to use the pick that you get back from Trent to go draft a tackle. And I feel the same way, but I think that's a nuanced thing in a sense, because that pick in itself, I don't think you necessarily should go out there and use that pick, but it allows you the flexibility to prioritize the position when you reach the draft. It allows you to prioritize. So say you get a second and a fourth back. Now you have the opportunity to draft a tight end in the second, but you could get that tackle in the third. So it gives you some flexibility. But I would not trade back in the first, and I would not use the number 2 pick to draft an offensive lineman either. Free agency it's not that impressive. So yeah, just use. I use that last option, but also just allows you to create some flexibility. So not necessarily that pick in itself, but you may be able to have some wiggle room and be able to do a lot more because you got that pick from Trent Williams.
All right, Rob, you're up. What do you think?
First of all, let me say we shouldn't do anything that centers around Jerron Christian, please. I'm not signing up for that. So ship his ass out too. But anything surrounding him, no. He is a backup at best. But I would have to agree. I honestly would use that pick. This is a great draft to have this situation. Not that you want to lose Trent, but the fact that the fact is that he's probably on his way out of town now. So this is a great draft to have this problem. It's a very deep tackle draft, especially at the right tackle position. Maybe you can do some shuffling of the offensive line just a little bit. I don't know. But it's a great tackle draft. I would address it with that pick. And as far as Trent's value, I honestly believe, like you said, at least a second-round pick. I would honestly ask for a first, given what he is and, his accolades and what he's been over his career. You're getting a guy that's going to lay it all out on the line. So I think that's easier to sell for a late first-round pick or mid first-round pick. So I think that's how I would address it, honestly.
Okay. Personally, for me, I'd trade down. I mean, everybody knows that I'm a trade down guy this year. Nobody agrees with me. Literally, not one person agrees with me. I'm the only one. In terms of the poll, you guys were both right. 65% voted use the Trent pick on left tackle. 27% voted for free agency or Jaron Christian. And by the way, I had to throw Christian in there with the free agency because there's not an option for a fifth choice. I hope none of you out there are voting for Christian because he may be a nice guy, but he's not a starter. And so really, when you're talking free agency, it's Jason Peters, it's Donald Penn, and beyond that, Greg Robinson's about to go to jail. So
senior citizens,
yeah, Greg Robinson's about to be a prisoner, so he's not an option. He is. I mean, when you get busted with 158 pounds of weed, you're going to prison. And so then only 5% of you said trade down. Only 2% of you said left tackle at number 2. So that's the results of the poll. That's that. Now, in terms of value. First of all, Ben Standig wrote a good article for The Athletic about this, went through every team. And it looks to me like maybe the Chargers, the Browns, the Jets, and the Cardinals are probably the most likely options. The rumor is the Cardinals are interested. The Chargers need a left tackle. The Browns certainly do. The Jets could use a left tackle. So I think any of those teams may be the ones to look at first. I think Rob is right. I think the Redskins need to ask for a number 1 pick to start with. He is still a 7-time Pro Bowler. He's only, 31, 32 years old. He can play for another 3 or 4 years at least at a high level. Presumably the year off helped his knees out, helped his athleticism come back a little bit. So there's no reason why they shouldn't ask for a first, in my view.
Well, I was going to ask Rob. So who do you think, if you're saying first round, who do you think is the target for in your eyes that are candidates for a trade for Trent mid to late first round?
Who do you mean? The
draft eligible, right?
So who do you think? Well, I don't even have the draft order in front of me. I should have did that. But just anybody in the mid to late rounds or mid to late order that stands out to you that's possibly that we can possibly get Trent Williams over there for.
Well, like you said, like Cleveland's sitting at 10. Let's not overlook. The Jets. They don't really have much. But I think the latest mock I seen that they were looking to draft a left tackle.
Yep, and it was reported recently too that they were actually interested in Trent Williams. So you're on point with the Jets.
Yeah, and then you look at the Raiders. I think they have 2 first-round picks this year, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, they sit at 12 and 19. So either one of those picks would be in play, in my opinion. That's pretty much Jacksonville. I don't see them making a trade with Jacksonville.
Well, also Jay Gruden is the offensive coordinator at Jacksonville now too. Remember, so I don't know if that plays into it.
I don't think him and Trent have the best relationship, to be honest. But
okay, there you go.
That may play into it. So.
Now, have you studied the draft class yet? Because there's a lot of disparate opinions on it. Some people think Andrew Thomas is the best. Tristan Wirfs has been rated highly. Mekhi Becton just blew everybody away at the combine last weekend. Have you looked at these guys?
I've looked at Becton a little bit. I honestly think Becton. You'll remember a guy out of Maryland who blew everybody away as offensive lineman, Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
reminds me of him, just from a standpoint of like physically he'll blow you away, but he never played up to that, even playing in the conference that he played in. So um, I kind of like him. I don't see it. He's definitely not a day one guy in my opinion. That's why I said this is a perfect draft to have this problem. But the things that are plaguing that did plague him in college, I think, are things that can be fixed and worked on. So he's definitely one of the guys that I like. I don't think Andrew Thomas is even going to be nowhere near where we picked. I
Huh.
mean, like he's definitely. I don't think he's worth two. To be honest, I couldn't pass on Chase for him. In my opinion, if they do trade, or if they do trade and get up like one of those mid to late first, then I think you address it with you address that position with that. But um, I, those guys, Mekhi Becton is the only guy that I really kind of paid most attention to. And like I said, he reminded me of Bruce Campbell. He's just a workout warrior, but it never translated to the field for some reason.
Let me ask. I want to ask you about Tristan Wirfs. I know you said he hadn't studied him closely, but he's a right tackle at Iowa. And so I don't know how. I mean, I wasn't an offensive lineman. I didn't play at your level. I don't know how hard it is to transfer over from the right side to the left side and remain at a high level.
I think honestly, I never played offensive line, but I have ran up against a lot of those guys, and I'll tell you what makes a good left tackle like really good, and that's instincts. And obviously technique is very close. It's 1A and 1B in those regards. But I honestly think it's a little more difficult than people think. Um, you're going against the right defensive end or right rusher, which is most teams' best guy for the most part, depending on who you're playing. And I think that the left tackle position is left solo more than the right tackle position. Like you left out on your own a little bit more than the right tackle position. Hopefully, I don't know if Robbie Duncan might correct me on this, but I really think that's the difference. Is that you got a little bit more solo work in the right tackle position.
Um, Yeah, and I know Robbie has said on this show before that to him the hardest thing wasn't moving from the outside to the inside; it was flipping left to right. That's what
Yeah.
Robbie has said on the show about it. I just like to address free agency too about this because I think a lot of fans have misguided view of really what's possible. Here this year in terms of free agency, it's Donald Penn is out there. Donald Penn played pretty well last year, certainly here in replacing Trent. He's 37. He's not on the roster this year. I don't know if he even wants to play anymore. Is he going to retire? Can the Redskins even sign him? We don't know any of that stuff. Jason Peters is another name that came out there. Jason Peters is 37 years old. That's not.
I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either. And let me just run through some names here. This is, by the way, courtesy of Spotrac. Andrew Whitworth, 38 years old. Anthony Costanzo. Greg Robinson, like I said, he's going to prison. Peters, Cedric Ogbui, if that's how you pronounce his name. I always get it wrong. Beyond that, there ain't a whole lot, people. I don't know how anybody could look at this free agent market and say, our left tackle of the future is here. And on top of that, you kind of need stability with Dwayne Haskins in the second year. So I don't get it. Any insight do you have, Rob, into Donald Penn? Does he even want to play again? Would he be good enough for now? What do you think?
I was about to say. I remember he said sometimes he's probably that he got the flu thing, so he may be.
Oh, okay. Well, Jamal,
I'm
Jamal,
about to say, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm an expert.
Oh, you're back. Okay, good. We thought we lost you.
Sorry, with
Donald
Donald,
Penn.
I'm sure he would be a last ditch option just in case they can't get anything. Or he wouldn't be my first option. I would put it that way. I don't know if he'd be willing to come back, and if he did, I thought he played. He was solid, but again, like you said, he's damn near 40. So I think it's time. It's a new regime. You get it. You get a new young guy, and you groom him. and from that standpoint. But I don't. He would be a last ditch effort for me, honestly, if I couldn't find anything else.
This is totally out of left field here. And I didn't warn you about this ahead of time. Sorry, but Morgan Moses. Morgan Moses takes a ration of hell on this show from fans from everywhere about the way he's played probably the past 2 years or so. Your opinion about Morgan Moses' play on the right side?
He Morgan hadn't been the same since he got paid. Um, I'll say that, but I will say this too.
Very fair.
I will say this too. I don't think he's been fully healthy. I really think he's been playing hurt, trying to take a page out of Trent's book. Um, I think it's a tough situation there. You paid him, so you gotta play him. I do think he's the best option over there, and maybe that's not a position that you address right away. Obviously, you give him a year, new coaching staff, so maybe something will change with him. Maybe he'll change his regimen or his diet or something, and start playing better. But I hadn't seen good play out of him since he got paid. I thought he looked hungrier before he got the contract. I thought he looked more like a mauler. Now he looks like he thinks he's the left tackle on the right side. That's your right tackle's your more aggressive guy. Your stalwart. So yeah, that's a tough situation with him.
Well, what's up with all the penalties he's getting though? It's like we did every week we publish penalties and ongoing for the Redskins, and he's always at the top with all the holding penalties, the false starts, and everything else. I don't get what happened.
Well, Robbie Duncan always tells me that penalties for an offensive lineman are a confidence thing.
Huh.
When you don't think you can get out there, you don't think you can block a guy, you look for every edge that you can get and try to get away with whatever you can get away with. When you had a confidence in your ability versus whoever you're playing against, it's not really an issue. You look to dominate them instead of try to get away with little tricky holds and stuff like that. So either he hadn't been healthy or he's not confident in his ability.
And I actually, you had brought up something that kind of stuck to me. I would never forget. I don't know if it was this past year or maybe 2018 or maybe 2017. Morgan Moses played, I think, a whole season or maybe a good portion of a season with 2 sprained ankles or something like that. 2 bad ankles he was playing. He was on the field. And, now that's the warrior in a player. Like I respect that 100%. But you do wonder, the ones that aren't known to the public, just the nagging week-to-week injuries, like how much of that is really affecting the player. So, yeah. It's good to keep that out there because you just never know from our standpoint what the player's dealing with. But yeah, the play, I never thought about it. The play has declined since he's gotten his money.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years, so now it's time you got to put up or shut up.
And at some point, they're going to cut him if it goes on too long, because they're not going to keep paying this money to him. And by the way, the other news of the week, by the way, was that the Redskins are trying to seriously work out a long-term deal with Brandon Scherff. That's a rumor floating around. That's a good side. They don't want him to play on the franchise tag. That's not good for anybody. I did a contract analysis last year. I'm going to update it for this year, but I thought 6 years, $88 million is probably the number. And to make him the highest paid guard in the league, have him beat the franchise tag. They can afford it. They need to do it. And the other thing I like to just dissuade people of is Brandon Scherff does not need to move outside people. He does not need to be a tackle. Good. So I'm glad we have the pro here saying that because I said it, but nobody cares about my opinion. So talk about that. Please dissuade people of that notion.
Well, for one, your guards are more aggressive. Those guys have great acceleration going forward, and they're great at the point of attack when they're attacking. You don't want that mentality at the tackle position. You don't want someone with that aggression playing at a position where you have to be patient. So it's not really. The footwork's totally different too. So that's like relearning how to ride a bike with one leg. Like it's too much. It's too much.
I never thought he had the ability to move laterally like Trent or some of the top tackles either.
He is great at going forward. I like his aggression. He's nasty. Like I like everything about Moore. He did have a down year this year. Again, another guy that I thought was hurt and was playing out of desperation, like trying to earn a new contract. So, But you got to keep him around.
It sounds a whole lot like Brandon Scherf is an all-pro guard, and we got to leave him exactly where he is. That's what call me crazy.
Absolutely. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Just like that. So yeah, let's go ahead and move because Brandon Scherf is actually a good segue into free agency, given the sense that there was a period in time where we thought he may just walk. Given that we had some considerations on who we had to pay.
There's no we here, man. I never thought he was going to walk. You might have thought he was going to walk.
Well, when you I'm sorry, I should say test the market, like hitting free agency and seeing like that's it was a potential in the sense that you never knew what was going to happen with Trent Williams after the regime got fired, and who were you going to pay? You going to pay Trent or were you going to pay Sheriff? And then franchising, which would make sense with Sheriff, but are you going to pay him the average salary of the entire offensive line, which was what $16 million, $2 million higher than the highest paid guard? Anyway, free agency. Who, if you had to give your five, and we can let because we'll let Rob go last here with this one, but your top five moves in free agency, you don't necessarily have to think of a player. If you have a player, good. But who is what are the five moves that the Redskins need to target or need to hit on come this free agency? Because we're a couple days away.
I got it. Don't worry. Linebacker. And fortunately, we have somebody here who knows all about being an NFL linebacker. This is a major, major problem. And I've been begging for the team to draft Isaiah Simmons, for weeks and months now about it. But to me, linebacker is a serious problem. The only middle linebacker type they have is on the roster is Sean Dean Hamilton, I guess. Rob, you told us last time you were on that Reuben Foster is a Sam. You got Cole Holcomb on the weak side. Okay, fine. But I think linebacker is a serious problem, number one. Number two, and I want to get your input on that. Number two, tight end. Knowing that at least one of those tight ends is now off the market, they don't have a starting tight end on the roster. Number three, corner. Fabian Moreau has been a disappointment to me. Quentin Dunbar's unhappy. It's a problem. Safety, I'm not sure Monte Nicholson is a great free safety in terms of his range. And he's a knucklehead who keeps getting in trouble. I don't know if that's somebody you want to rely on, going forward. Those are the top ones. I think wide receivers are less of a problem than we might think. And by the way, obviously I'm leaving out offensive line. We just talked about that. But those are mine. Rob, linebacker. You talked a little bit about linebacker last time you were on the show. And I noticed this week that the Redskins are negotiating with John Bostic again. What do you think, generally speaking, they need to do about the linebacker position?
I think, for one, Bostic played very well this year. I think early in the season he was a little lost. I think he was too aggressive earlier. And that's weird coming from a linebacker. I've never
too
called
aggressive?
A linebacker too aggressive. But no, like if you notice, John, when he gets down in his stance, he kind of does a little hop forward when he thinks it's a run, and he gets caught up in the line, and then all of a sudden it's a stretch play, and he's inside where he really shouldn't be. He's caught in the wash. So that was my one complaint with him. But I think he did play very well this year. I don't think linebacker is a huge need, honestly. And if you want to address it in the draft, it's a very deep linebacker draft. I mean, you got guys who would normally be, I would say Kenneth Murray, one of those guys who was just, I would think is a first-round talent. You may be able to get him in the third. So it's a huge need. It's not a huge need, sorry. It's not a huge need. But it is something that can be addressed via draft or after the draft free agency.
Okay.
So with that being said, who would you say what would you say your five moves that the Redskins need to make? It doesn't have to be in a particular order, but whether it's player or position group, what do they need to go after in free agency to help this team out?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think you need another pass catcher, whether it be a tight end. I would go after Austin Hooper. I think it's been reported that they will, and I think that's a great move. I think he fits exactly what they can do, or what they do. A guy who can not only get open and make the circus catches, but he's also a good run blocker, a good inline blocker. So that would be one of the first moves that I make. And I honestly, I would kind of wait in the wings and see what Dallas would do with Amari.
Really?
That sounds crazy.
It does sound crazy.
Yes,
but I want to see. I really want to see.
100%.
because you can get a guy who may feel disrespected that he didn't get the contract that he wanted from that team. Hey, stay in the division, kick their ass every week. Twice a year. So I would watch that position. I don't think McLaurin's enough. You banking on the development of Harmon and other guys. You know what you got out of Steve Sims, who can play the slot. But so tight end, wide receiver. I do think you have to address the DB position, whether it be safety or cornerback. You look at a guy like James Bradbury, who hasn't been a world beater, but he's very solid in the back end. And again, you watch what Dallas does with Byron Jones.
I'd love to take Byron Jones from him.
Here's what you do: if you have the opportunity to take Byron Jones from him, you take him and you move his ass back to safety. He is not a corner.
Really?
He is not a corner. He can play corner. He's not a corner.
So that solves the back end problem, and Monte can kind of be a backup, which is probably what he should be.
Well,
I think you may be wrong. That's my sense.
Well, I mean, I think with Monte, I think he has the athletic ability and the wherewithal to play safety. I don't trust him off the field. That's it.
I don't either. I think he's a knucklehead.
Stuff pending, and it's just ridiculous. But players make mistakes. I'm not going to judge him on any of those things that I don't know about. But from that standpoint, I just don't trust him. So those three moves, and then again, you address the offensive line in a sneaky move. Honestly, I would look at another running back.
That's exactly what I was about
Jamal.
to.
I wish everybody could have seen Jamal's reaction just now.
I was waiting for it. I was like, nobody mentioned running back yet.
People will probably kill me for this, but I would see what the market is for Melvin. He's not going to get the money that he thinks he's going to get. And depending on what you have available, hey, Melvin, just sign a 2-year deal. Let's just see, you know what I'm saying? See what's going on. 3-year deal. You got Geis, you got Adrian Peterson. One is very old, but kind of productive still. And then you got one who just can't seem to get out of his own way injury-wise. Is just having bad luck. So you got to address that position.
And that's the thing that really. And I'm glad that you see it. A lot of fans, or the ones that I come in contact with, they understand that they need a replacement for Chris Thompson. But some of those people view Bryce Love as that replacement. And it's not fair to Bryce Love because, first and foremost, there was a lot of things that Chris Thompson did that you're not necessarily, it's not clear cut that Bryce Love is that guy. And that's mainly understanding that Chris Thompson was a third down specialist. He's a pass catcher and he's a runner. But at the same time, Chris Thompson can be utilized out wide, and he can run routes effectively out of the backfield at any angle, like any type of thing. You're not necessarily sure that Bryce Love can do exactly what Chris Thompson do. Maybe he can develop into it, but you're not sure. That's the first thing. Secondly, he's coming off an ACL injury. There's no word, there's no update right now on when he'll be back. We just know that he had 2 surgeries. The ACL coming into the league, and then he had a recent surgery. I don't know when, but it was sometime last year. You just don't know with Bryce Love. And then you got a guy who can't get out of his own way. He just keeps getting hurt. It's not necessarily all his fault. But if you can't stay on the field, we're relying on a 34-year-old running back. That's it. Exactly. That's it. And you need a guy, you need a 3-down, you need somebody who's capable of being a 3-down player at the running back position. Melvin Gordon is one. I wouldn't shoot that high personally, but that's literally the type of person that you need. You need that 3-down player.
I brought Melvin in the conversation because I think the market's not going to be favorable for him. I think he's going to be really affordable, and a lot of people are going to be surprised at how affordable Melvin Gordon is. And then not only that, if he doesn't get the contract that he wants, he probably will be willing to sign a 1-year prove-it deal to somebody to say, look, the wheels are still here. I got it. And why not the rest?
Hey, look, we talking about that 1-year deal. I'm right here with it. That's my guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Melvin's a proud guy, and I think he would take a prove-it deal. He would bet on himself for sure. Who'd we have on, Jamal? I asked about Bryce Love. I can't remember. We had an insider on past couple shows. His name's escaping me. I asked him about Bryce Love, and he said nobody's heard from him, in a while. So we truly don't know. Jamal pointed Edwards-Helaire out to me from LSU. See, Robert's shaking his head. To me, Edwards-Helaire is type of guy we need. So you disagree with me?
No, definitely not.
Why not?
Here's why, and just go back and watch him. He had big moments. He had great
Yeah,
moments.
he did.
He's Samaje Perine 2.0.
Huh.
Uh-oh.
Same body type, same build, same explosion that we saw.
Right.
Remember, Perine wowed everybody at Oklahoma.
Right.
Oh my God, the size, the power, and the speed combination. What did Allaire do? Speed and power combination. People thought the same thing. And then another LSU running back. I'm not having it. So it's just that's just me personally.
So I was never high on P. Ryan particularly because I never thought he had the vision for it, and I thought he was helped a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Jamal.
No, I was 100%. I was about to say I 100% agree with you. Like the thing with, or that's what I was alluding to, because when you see Samaje Perine, when you look back just in your head, you're seeing Samaje Perine having these clear lanes because the field is already spread out. It's not necessarily taking him extra. Like he's not doing anything extra from his standpoint. But when you look at Edwards-Helaire, from my perspective, yes, they had a elite passing game. The coordination was great for LSU. You have that type of situation there at LSU. But at the same time, when you see him in the trenches and you see him in tight spaces, you see the ability of him being able to be agile, being able to be elusive. The pass catching ability outside of the backfield is something that I love. But that's why I would say there's a distinction there. The size thing is 100%. I never even thought about that with Perine. But and the difference is, I think that he has the potential to come in as that third down back at the very least. You have somebody who's capable of being a 3-down back, but right now you can use him as a specialist or a certain down in certain situations while you have the ability to use Peterson, fingers crossed, Geist too, in other areas. And maybe you can use Bryce Love as soon as he gets healthy. But Edwards-Helaire is a little bit different than Perine because, first off, Perine wasn't really nothing special to begin with.
I didn't think so either, but we'll see.
I think Geist gives you all that if he can stay healthy.
That's true. That's true.
They the same body type. They're the same type of player.
Well, let me ask you about this, Rob. That's a good. Let's stop you right there because we as fans see these players like guys that get injured, and we immediately label them injury prone. And I don't know if a guy has a body that's naturally predisposed to getting injured, if it's just bad luck, if he's not working hard enough in rehab or what. So, talk to me about injuries and a player being labeled like guys who as a injury-prone guy.
Well, for one, it's football, so there's 100% injury rate in football. It's not for the faint of heart, and every week, every player on that field is hurt in some way or another. There's nobody that's completely healthy ever. So I think you got to take that into consideration when you go in. And then with those injuries, those small injuries, they lead to bigger ones sometimes. You got a guy who's got a pull quad or, his quad is tight or, he's bruised, but he's still trying to play. He runs a certain way, and then all of a sudden that bruised quad turns into, pull something else. Or let's just say, like Geist, for instance, you have an ACL on your right knee. Like for me, my MCL meniscus on my right knee, I was rehabbing, training, and that wasn't the one that was giving me problems. It was my left because I was overcompensating. So those are things like that players don't, like people don't think of. A guy's rehabbing one, but he's favoring that one. He's rehabbing, so he's putting all the pressure on the left one. So now the left one's hurt. You know what I mean? So now it's just you got to find the right training staff or the right people to train with who will give you constant work on both sides. There used to be an old saying when I was rehabbing one was that what you do to one side, you got to do to the other. And it just depends on the player's mentality and staff that he's around. Because you got to think these guys don't know nothing about being hurt. I never got hurt till I played in the NFL. I played every game in college, with the exception of one. So that was an eligibility issue. So there's there's certain things that guys don't think of.
And by the way, Rob has a horrible rehab story with the Redskins, and I don't want to repeat it here, but go back and listen to his last appearance on the show a few weeks ago because it's just awful, horrid. So, free agency. The only other thing I'd like to mention on the tight end thing, two things, I guess. Tight end, the other name out there is Hunter Henry. It looks like he's about to be franchise tagged, and to me, he was a one-dimensional player anyway.
Rob's over here shaking his head on that name.
No, man. Let them franchise. You keep his ass. I don't want him.
The other guy, real quick, we're a little bit running out of time here. The other one I'd like to talk about is Eric Flowers, because they still have a massive gap on the left side, interior side. Now, to me, I was on the Eric Flowers train early on. I always thought he could be a good guard. We've heard nothing about negotiating with him, anything, but Eric Flowers, that's good? What do you think? Talk about Eric Flowers.
Then no, I'm saying when you don't hear anything like that.
Okay. I thought you meant it was good that they weren't they weren't talking to him. So you think they ought to bring him back?
I think they will bring him back. I think when Ron said he went back and he watched the last 4 games, every snap, last 4 games or something like that, and how each guy fought. And if I'm not mistaken, he brought up a few players, and I think Eric was one of them. I think that's been he solidified that left guard spot for us with a nice power. I think that his ability to be patient and be aggressive and be nasty in some sense too really solidified that spot. I think you bring him back when you start hearing guys or you start hearing people saying, this guy's talking contract extension. That's one side putting pressure on the other side to come to the table. If you don't hear anything, that's perfect. That means that both sides are like, all right, we want to be back. Like, let's keep it low key. Let's make it happen. When you start hearing one guy saying or somebody come out saying they talking contract extensions with this player, it's one side or the other trying to leverage something.
So that's good news. See, we have good news by the absence of news. That's good because what we're going to do is go from an O-line that is currently a complete disaster to one that's got hopefully a draft pick on the left side, both guards slots filled for the foreseeable future, and then you can kind of work with Morgan Moses this year. It goes to something that's what is right now awful to something that's a pretty good O-line for the next couple of years.
Well, look, I tell you one thing. If they sign Jason Peters or Donald Penn, I'm gonna just say F it and bulk up and try out by training camp. Get my shot.
Listen, I don't even, bro. If they sign Jason Peters come on, man, they done. Those guys they done. Penn could come back on some kind of vet minimum as a last ditch effort if we need him, like he did last year. But
do you know Penn personally?
No, I don't know him personally.
Okay.
I met him a few times, but I don't know him personally.
I mean, I think most fans are under the delusion that he's kind of the answer for some reason. I don't personally get it.
I hope not.
Because one thing with fans is they play favorites, and then one thing I've noticed about Redskin fans is that the unknown guy or the dark horse guy is always the answer. It's always the guy who plays 10 snaps and does good in 5 snaps, and they're like, he's the answer. He's the answer.
There's a graveyard of those people out there.
Who was the running back when I was here?
Well, Matt Jones was one of them, but are you talking about when you played?
Marcus Mason.
Marcus Mason. That's who. Dude, if you could, come on, man.
I ain't gonna lie, I liked him.
But him over. I mean, come on, man. You bet off. I think they were bet off with Rock in there. Like, that was people. I mean, the hype behind him, and then my rookie year, Colt Brennan hype was like.
Yeah.
Well, there was Marco Mitchell. Remember him, the receiver?
Yeah, Marco, I came in with Marco. Yeah, he caught 2 touchdowns in preseason, and then it was like.
Oh my God! Yeah.
He had a long way to go route running wise, and if y'all could see how many picks Colt threw in practice, people would have been like, "Hell no."
Oh my goodness. Again, we appreciate you, Rob, for hopping on with us again, man.
Thanks for toughing out the flu for us. More importantly.
Yeah, that part, and it's definitely a good occurrence or reoccurrence for sure, and to help us fill out with the 2-man crew. You made it a 3-man crew today, so we appreciate you hopping on. Thanks for the insight again, and Steve again for we appreciate you. I said we, but I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying for hopping on with us because if you wasn't on, I think it would have been 2-man. But anyway,
That's when you subtract 1 from 2.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I told you I'm not the best at math, but I try my best. But all right, anyway.
Wait.
I said it wrong too. Yeah, see, when you subtract 3, we need Rob to correct it. When you subtract 1 from 3, you get 2. See, none of us are math majors.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's early in the morning. Anyway. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the show. And again, if you made it this far, you will hear the draft special, bowl prediction special later on in April, closer to the draft. So we appreciate you all for listening. Have a good day, good night, whenever you're listening. All right, thanks.